because there's a lot of questions. Happy Friday, y'all. Okay, first question here. 4-month old with eczema, exclusively breastfed. Is it my diet? Does he need a probiotic? Yeah, potentially. But I would say that most of the time it could be related to some sort of underlying fungal issue. It's very common with little kids, especially at that age, a little infant. Could it be your diet? Most likely, because that's the only source of nutrition. There's something to consider is food sensitivities, not just your baby's food, not just your baby's sensitivities, but also you having food sensitivities. And that could be creating like immune reactions that then get transferred through. Something that I think most often people overlook is going to be like a mold toxicity issue, like indoor mold. 70% of homes have, or 70% of buildings, I should say, have some sort of mold in them. So that's another big problem. But could you benefit from you eating or taking probiotics, or eating like fermented foods? Yes, I think that would be a good thing to do. If you're interested in doing like something that's for fungus, I think looking at Scutellaria, which is an herb, you can find that at Supreme Nutrition, or you can do the other name for it is called skullcap. That is safe during for when you're nursing, and then you can also do like black cumin oil that is safe while nursing. So simple things like that. Another thing that you can do if it's topical is going to be using Vervita. You can use a essential oil blend called Immune Harmony, and I find that Immune Harmony. Or even Elite Harmony, just something maybe with some tea tree oil diluted and cut, that could be helpful for eczema and things like that. But there's also sometimes with eczema, you also run into parasites. So when it comes to parasites, though, my recommendation is at 4 months, you're either doing something like a homeopathic or you're doing nothing at all. Like I wouldn't just go after parasites because what happens is with parasites, they're really good at being sponges to toxins like heavy metals. So if you're going to go and do parasite cleansing at this time, well, you're potentially also going to be releasing heavy metals and other toxins that are soaked up by the parasites. So that is one reason why I wouldn't recommend doing that. Now, if you're telling me your kid is 14 months, and you're still breastfeeding, I'd say that I'd be comfortable doing some parasite cleansing for yourself, and also for your kid as well. Cool. All right. Headaches and terrible neck pain right below the skull before period for the last 5 months. Now, very common for females before their period, they get headaches and pain and inflammation. Usually, that is a sign of trouble with clearing estrogen. Estrogen is a very inflammatory hormone, and it's supposed to do that. When females go through their menstrual cycle and have menses, you're supposed to have prostaglandins and inflammatory chemical mediators. It's an inflammatory process, and there's an estrogen surge that happens. With that estrogen surge, your liver also has to break it down. If your liver is already slow at detoxifying, then you're going to have a lot of estrogen that gets backed up, creating an issue where you have these headaches, migraines, neck pain, stuff like that. Something that you can use, and I would say it's a good 80 to 90% effective, is going to be taking chaste tree as an herb and rosemary. Both of them are available through Supreme Nutrition, and rosemary is helpful for breaking down estrogen. And Chase tree is good at raising progesterone. When you raise progesterone, it is helpful because you're no longer in the, let's just say, so some people go in. So I have this saying where about estrogen dominance, and it's not always high estrogen. It's high relative to a low progesterone. And a lot of females have low progesterone because you are under a lot of stress, because there's toxicity. Your adrenals are constantly working, so it's unable to help out with making progesterone for whatever reason. So without enough progesterone, you will get, well, you will be under the influence of more estrogen. So it's not a true high estrogen. It's just relative to progesterone, it's higher. And during your cycle, when you have things like higher estrogen, your liver is going to have a harder time buffering those out. So pretty common. Chase tree, rosemary, those two things are really helpful. Maybe something that you might want to also consider is like a DIM product. I don't often use that much, but if you do really have a lot of estrogen issues, then maybe some DIM or some calcium D-glucarate. Yeah, and you can find stuff like that. I'm thinking of a product called Accelerated Health Liver Care. So it's made by Accelerated Health Products. Liver Care, it has TUDCA in it. It has Cal D-glucarate, which are very good at helping. First of all, TUDCA is good for the liver, and then Cal D is good at helping you clear out some estrogen. We also use Cal D for things like cancer that could be related to estrogen problems. Okay. All right. Next question, clearing the liver and gut to alleviate acne and digestion. Yeah, actually, there were plenty of questions from that. I think I answered a question on my stories, and it was about acne, and I said liver issues. And sometimes, sorry, I don't explain too much because it just takes a while to type all these things out, which is why I like doing these lives now, because I get to just talk at you instead of typing it all out. There's a lot of nuances too. But it is true that with acne, for me at least, I always find some sort of liver connection and sometimes a digestive connection. If you have a toxic gut, let's just say your microbiome is not strong. Maybe you're on a lot of processed foods and things like that. Maybe you didn't have a strong microbiome to begin with, like when you first came out of the womb. Maybe you were C-section, whatever the case might be. Maybe you did a lot of antibiotics as in your earlier years, and now your microbiome is not as robust. Maybe you're more susceptible to dysbiosis. That's like an imbalance of bacteria, fungi, parasites, protozoa in your gut. And that can create issues for you later on. Now, that can create immune issues. Now, if you have a toxic gut, or if you're eating things that is toxic, well, your liver has to deal with that, because the next stop after your gut is your liver. Your intestines is the outside environment. You eat food, it breaks down in your intestines. The blood vessels absorb it. It takes that blood, it takes those nutrients, takes those constituents, all the things and toxins, all the things that you've broken down, and also the bacteria byproducts and metabolites. It takes all those things and it brings it to the liver. The next stop is the liver. It goes through the hepatic portal vein and then into the liver. And the liver is sort of like the packaging plant, right? It's like UPS. And then they're sorting things out. They're trying to package things, and they basically go, oh, this is waste. This is useful. We can use this right now, right? And the liver has to do all those things. So if you do have a poor gastrointestinal environment, if you don't have good gut health, if you're eating things that are toxic, if you're eating processed foods, etc., then you can also cause the liver to be overburdened by those by toxicity as well too. And so that creates congestion in the liver, which then produces a lot of heat in the liver. And think of that like inflammation, right? To keep it simple. And that will create acne as well. The other thing with skin, acne, rashes, eczema, stuff like that. The other thing is that if your liver is slow and it's not pushing toxins out fast enough, well, your body has a very smart mechanism to go into the backup mechanisms of detoxification, which is through the skin or the lungs or the kidneys. So you pee things out, you breathe it out, and then you sweat it out. So if you start to see things in your skin, then you got to go back and go, well, why is my body going through a backup mechanism? Is my primary detoxification pathway clogged up or slow, right? Then you start doing things there. So I always kind of start with that liver component, which automatically goes into the conversation of gut health. Okay. I know I rambled off there, but hopefully that provides you with some context about what's happening. All right, let's go to another question here. 3-year-old yellow coating, automatically thinking yeast, sour smell breath. Oh yeah, there you go. You figured it out. Yeast. And yeah, fungus and yeast is going to be the main thing there. Again, very common for children. I don't know if they have had vaccines or if or are they C-section, etc. But potentially you can help this child, 3-year-old. So I am comfortable with doing some more work on using herbs as antimicrobials. So something I mentioned at first, which is Scutellaria, is really good. Scutellaria is antifungal. It's also a very good thing for damp heat, which dampness can create this yellow coating and sour smelling breath. Damp heat is essentially phlegm. And you might want to reconsider your dairy choices because dairy is very phlegm producing. So if you're doing conventional dairy, maybe switch to a raw dairy. If you can't do raw dairy, maybe do a low heat pasteurization. And why I mentioned dairy is because 3-year-old, they're probably eating dairy. It's convenient. It's a good source of protein. It's easy. They love it. All the things. So yogurt responds a little differently because it's fermented. So you can still do the yogurt, but I would do like a unflavored, unsweetened yogurt because the sugar can also create more phlegm and damp heat in the body, worsening this issue, feeding yeast and stuff like that. You got to understand that like yeast and fungus grows in the body, and sometimes you got to go and kill them off and whatever, but also your liver kind of takes care, your body's own way of detoxifying will take care of some of these overgrowths. And if you have a lot of congestion, like lymphatic congestion, right, from this dampness, from this phlegm that gets produced, well, your body's not gonna get rid of them, and then that creates reabsorption and more of an immune reaction. So anyways, long story short, try some Scutellaria with this kid, and then also do switch up your dairy, stay off of the sugar. Some people like to avoid all the fermented foods when they're doing some sort of anti-yeast, antifungal thing. I don't always find that is helpful, nor is it necessary. Again, everybody's a little different, and I don't know the case here, so I'm just trying to provide a little bit more nuance. All right, next question, shall we? This is interesting. Fluid in husband's knee comes and goes, sometimes with fever, no arthritis or injury. Well, that's really interesting. One of my biggest things with the knees is going to be some sort of pathogenic infection, something like maybe Lyme infection. Now, that doesn't mean Lyme disease, by the way. I do treat a lot of people with Lyme disease and people that also have infections. So the infections would be like the pathogens would be Borrelia, Bartonella, Babesia, Ehrlichia. stuff like that. Those are called spirochetes. And those guys they're like bacteria that acts like parasites that love to embed itself into areas that don't have a lot of oxygen, like the knee or the ankles, or maybe even sometimes in the IT band, like in the fascia, back of the neck right here at the base of the neck, sometimes like at the mid back, mid spine. And so get this person checked, get your husband checked, find somebody who does frequency medicine, muscle testing, that understand Lyme and parasites. They treat for those things. Because why I mention that is because, well, like you said, there's no physical injury. And remember the triad of health, right? There's three things that can cause any problems: something physical, something biochemical, and something emotional. So you can have all three of those things. Something physical would be like, for this knee issue, a physical problem would be like, yeah, you were playing basketball with some friends and then you twisted your knee, and that's a physical injury. Or you're playing basketball every single day and then you're creating overuse. That's a physical problem. You can also have a biochemistry problem, which could be like these infections or toxicities. And then you can have or even protein deficiency for that, because if you're protein deficient, well, your body's like, I don't really need my knees. I need my heart to function. So we're going to rob Peter to pay Paul. We're going to take protein away from the knees and not repair that. And that can create long-term issues for you. So protein is a big thing. So I would recommend supplementing with protein or eating more protein, and also maybe supplementing with collagen as well too. And then you also have the mental emotional thing. And a lot of times with the knee, there are a few muscles of concern. If it is the front of the knee, now I'm thinking quadriceps. And your quadriceps is four muscles that come down attached to the tibia, right? That little bone when you reach down. And so if your quadriceps are weak and those muscles are not properly absorbing force that from impact could be going to the tendons and the ligaments and the attachment sites of that muscle. And therefore that can create issues with inflammation and, tendonitis and stuff like that. So it could come from like a weak knee, like weak muscle. And if it's a weak muscle, then you're going to want to strengthen, but also there's a connection. Every muscle in the body has an organ relationship. The quadriceps relates to small intestine. What's up, Simon? Yeah. What was I saying? Oh, quadriceps is small intestine related. So maybe there's some sort of small intestine, gut issue, dysbiosis, SIBO, or, stuff like that. If he has bloating, then you can pretty much think that maybe there's a gut related problem. On the back side of the knee, you have the hamstrings. And the hamstrings are related to the large intestine. So there could be parasites in the large intestine. You might have dysbiosis there. You might have an imbalance of bacteria in the large intestine. In the right behind the knee, literally right behind it, what unlocks it is a muscle called the popliteus. Very, this muscle is overlooked, not talked about. Not many people know about it. Tiny muscle, but does a whole lot to stabilize the knee. So this popliteus muscle is related to the gallbladder, and the gallbladder is related emotionally to being stubborn, having resentment, right? Galled, right? So if there's resentment that he's holding on to, could that be affecting the knee? Could that be shutting off his popliteus that's destabilizing the knee? Yes, absolutely. And that's why sometimes people will come to me and they go, I have had no injury. I haven't done anything to my knee physically, but I have a torn meniscus, which is pretty wild to think about. A torn meniscus or some sort of torn ligament or tendon issue in the knee with no injury. How does physical therapists or most chiropractors or orthopedic folks explain that one? They cannot. And I can explain it because of this emotional connection, because of these muscles connected to your organs. So if your organs aren't functioning, it will shut off the muscle, because every muscle in the body, right, has also another the nerve innervation to it. It's kind of like when you have like a circuit breaker, and then you flip a switch, right, and it turns off the power to your kitchen, your living room, right, and also the backyard, for example, and because they're all connected to the same circuit, right, and so that one circuit has multiple wires going to it. Same thing for your spine is a circuit breaker, and there's multiple nerves coming from the spine that goes to the organ, but there's also another part of that spinal level where another nerve comes out and goes to the muscle. So that's why when sometimes people get heart attacks or myocardial infarctions, what do they say? You don't typically, sometimes, especially for females, they may not feel it in their heart or their chest. They might be feeling like the left arm pain or jaw pain, right? That's called referred pain. The reason why is because your body is like, well, I don't think my organs are hurting. So maybe it's the arm, maybe it's the jaw, right? It gets confused. So that's the thing with referred pain patterns, right? And referred issues is going to be, so if there's a knee issue and there's no physical injury, I'm almost always looking at some sort of biochemistry problem or some sort of mental emotional problem, right? All right. Hopefully that's helpful. I love that stuff. When I was in school, like I was fascinated about how everything is connected. And yeah, I know some of you guys just want some, quick, straight answers, how do I fix this? How do I fix that? And that's not how my brain works. My brain works in these, like we go down rabbit holes and we find like these little connections and these nuances. Sometimes it's that simple as, oh, you have a knee issue and it is a physical problem. Right? Maybe you got to do some decline squats. Maybe you got to strengthen your knees. Could be as simple as that. But sometimes it's not real. It's not that. And people, whenever I tell people that, oh, I do chiropractic, they always go, oh, I have some sort of pain, blah blah blah. And I tell people that um 90 to 95% of my appointments, people come to me, they don't come to me for pain. They don't come to me for a physical problem. Although I love that stuff. I love like treating physical ailments, but I don't, because there are other, most of the time people come in because they're like, I've been to so many people. I've been to the physical therapist. I've been to the ortho. I've been to, a chiro, and I've gotten all this stuff done and it's not helping. And that's because there's biochemistry imbalances or mental emotional issues. Anyways, beating that to a dead horse. All right, let's talk about some other things, shall we? Tossing and turning at night. Do you find that the right mattress, or is this something else? Well, first of all, I think that yeah, it could be your mattress, right? The other thing could be your sensitivity to uh yay, fellow Asians, I know, right? Shout out to the Asians. Um Anyways, what was I doing? What was I talking about? Oh, mattress. So mattress. Could it be your mattress? Sure. Could it be also electromagnetic radiation sensitivity? Absolutely. If you have like a sensitivity to that, if you have your router on blast, if you have a lot of smart things and wireless tech, if you're keeping your phone next to you, if you have a smart meter, if you're in a place where you have a lot of cell towers, and you can look that stuff up, by the way, there's a website where you can look up how many cell towers are in your area. I forgot the exact website, but I'm sure you can Google it and find it. You could have like a lot of restlessness in your nervous system. You see, our nervous system, it responds to energy, electricity, wavelengths, light, the electromagnetic spectrum. And so these radio waves that are coming in is very disruptive on our nervous system. So so people might just feel anxious, might just feel stressed. They might be in a sympathetic dominant state. They might be in a mild state of fight or flight, a mild state of restlessness because they're under the influence of these electromagnetic signals. And so for those instances, you can try doing like a grounding sheet, like a bed grounding sheet to help ground out some of those like positive ions and keep your body grounded. You can turn off the router at night. You can put your phone on airplane mode. Keep it in a Faraday bag. If you have to leave your phone on and off airplane mode because maybe might be expecting some sort of I don't know, like call. Maybe if your kids or something might call you. Maybe if you have a kid who's out in college and you want to you want to make sure that you are able to take the phone call in case something happens, whatever, right? One is you can still have a landline. It's not that expensive to have a landline phone. You can, which is great because it's hardwired. You can keep the phone further away from you. You can keep it in one like Faraday bag and leave the bag open so that it's still getting some, but you're at least blocking some out. You can somebody mentioned shungite, and shungite is great, but to me, that's like kind of taking a knife to a gunfight. You know what I mean? Like it's just not in today's world is not as powerful, but you can totally have that. The Lila Quantum, Lila Quantum Tech is a great company, and you can use some of their the Lila Quantum blocks. I have a couple of those. You can have like their capsules that you wear. You can have a frequency card to like keep around. My friend Justin Franson, who makes EMF Rocks, so go to emfrocks.com. They make grounding bags that is good, and you can shove that underneath your bed. If you have a lot of electromagnetic pollution in your area, might want to consider using more. You can even, for your bed, you can even have like a Faraday, those things called, what are those things called? It's kind of like a mosquito net, right? But it's a Faraday net. And the Faraday material is helpful to block out EMF. So you can kind of be in this like little cocoon for your bed. And that's very helpful. And so EMFs is a big thing. If you are sensitive to EMFs, then Canopy, yeah, that. If you have sensitivity to EMFs, and how would you know if you do is, go to like the mall, go to an area that has a lot of electromagnetic radiation, like all you got to do is take your phone, go to settings, go to Wi-Fi, and see how long that list is. If your list is endless, if you live in an apartment, right, and everybody has a router, it's you're like in a microwave. So you might want to consider something like that, like the EMF canopy. If you're really savvy, you can you can paint your walls with this EMF paint. They're a little expensive, but it's a one-time thing. And what's interesting is back in the day, we used to have lead paint, right? And lead is a really good radiation absorber. Think about when you get an X-ray, and let's say you're getting an X-ray of like your arm or something, and they will shield your reproductive organs with a lead shield, this heavy lead shield. And because lead absorbs radiation. So, anyways, not telling you to get lead paint. I don't know where you would find that nowadays, but that is another concept there. And you can also supplement with things like iodine, which is good, again, to mitigate the effects of electromagnetic radiation. You can also do more magnesium at night. recommend doing like magnesium topical. So get like a magnesium lotion or spray. It's better absorbed, and usually it's helpful for the tossing and turning and restless legs and stuff like that when you have more magnesium, because it's very calming to the nervous system. But I would only take magnesium if you're taking it orally at night away from food, because it could be disruptive on the other nutrients that you absorb, and especially when you're taking like a synthetic form of magnesium, like things like magnesium citrate, magnesium glycinate, magnesium L-threonate, right? You got to notice that those things are not producible in nature. Like we don't combine these proteins with this mineral, right? We do that in a lab, so it is synthetic. So that does have an effect on your absorption of nutrients. So you might want to just take that at night to give it its full glory. And then you can also do things like essential oils at night too. That could be helpful. And another thing is Epsom salt bath, which is also magnesium, by the way. So a warm Epsom salt bath at night is very calming to the nervous system. Sauna is actually really good, especially infrared saunas. Infrared saunas could be really helpful to calm the nervous system at night. That doesn't mean that the traditional dry sauna won't, but sometimes if you go to a dry sauna and it's cranked up to like 180, 190, 200 degrees, that's creating a stress event in your body, right? It's creating some sort of hermetic stress. And that stress does raise your sympathetic response, and that could be potentially stressful, but maybe you have a lower heat and that's okay. Infrared, typically you're not raising those temperatures at that. I've never seen an infrared that is at like 200 degrees, 180. And frankly, like they don't really get up that high anyways, just because of the mechanisms of how using far infrared and radiation works. Is very hard unless you have some sort of ceramic heater. All right, cool. I'm just rambling now. Hope you enjoy it. Let's talk about some other things. There's a lot of good questions. A lot of things I don't want to get into, but a lot of things I do. Gallstones, very easy actually to get rid of. There's an herb called Chancapidra. Supreme Nutrition makes one. It is called Bodyguard, and that one's good at getting rid of stones in the body. You can use a bile salt called Tudka that helps thin out the bile. So why people get gallstones is a few things. One, maybe you're eating too much oxalates or oxalic acid. So foods that are high in oxalates, you will attract more calcium, and that could produce more stones in the body. People have even like had calcification in like their shoulder, in tendon, bicipital tendon, in maybe even like parts of their knee or other parts in their fascia. But gallstones, kidney stones, things like that, you got to get off the oxalates for a while to let that dissolve. Supplement with Tudka, supplement with the Chancapidra, the Bodyguard, lemon juice first thing in the morning with some warm water. If you want, you can do a little bit of like a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil. That helps flush out old bile. There's a very old school kidney or liver and gallbladder flush for gallstones, and it does involve doing a bunch of lemon juice in the morning and stuff like that. You can look that up. I forget the author's name, but you can just look up Google like liver and gallbladder flush. But simple things like that, right? You can easily get rid of gallstones. And then watch your diet too. You know, if you're eating a lot of crap, then you're going to get a lot of sludgy bile. You can use ox bile as well. So ox bile is very cheap. It's very readily available anywhere as a supplement. You know, Vervita makes one called Gastro Digest, and that one has betaine HCl, which helps acidify the stomach. It has ox bile, and it has some pancreatic enzymes to help with protein digestion. If you're just looking for straight ox bile, then Standard Process makes one, and it's called Cholecol. Okay, Cholecol. So that one is just straight purified ox bile. So that could be very helpful in clearing out gallstones and whatnot. Okay. And then also, if you're really dehydrated, then you can also create more stones, and because bile is also part water too. So you're going to want to make sure you're hydrating yourself. Okay. And again, like for a lot of gallbladder people and liver gallbladder people, emotionally, like, get your anger, get your stored anger and frustration and resentment resolved, because those things can really slow down the function of your liver as well too. I've seen it so many times where people have these types of like liver gallbladder issues, and there's just a lot of unresolved emotions, and either they've never talked about it before, or it's just like an ongoing thing for them. And so find a practitioner who does neuro emotional technique, and they can help you with the mental emotional part. Okay. There's other types of mental emotional techniques out there, like emotion code. You can find a psychologist that does EMDR, stuff like that. So those are all helpful, but I just always talk about neuro-emotional technique because that's what I am trained in, and that's what I get done, and it has helped me significantly as well as helping a lot of other people. So, but try stuff. All right. All right, let's get into some real stuff, huh? Why is no one talking about Trump administration deregulation of toxin allowances in food and water? Well, because I think some people are talking about it, and because at the end of the day, um, politics, it's a big stage, right? And we the politicians don't really like run the world. It's it's the it's the elites. It's the people that are in the behind the scenes that have tons of money, tons of power, tons of control, that own everything, and they're the ones that are really making policies and stuff like that. I think at the end of the day, it really comes down. I'm a spiritual person, so I think it's really a thing, but that is about good and evil, and because it just doesn't make sense, right? What's funny is like we don't seem to have many logical people or seemingly very like grounded people. There are some, but there's not a whole lot. There's not a whole lot of like grounded, just regular folks with common sense in politics. And well, it's by design, because the powers that be, why would they want like logical, common sense people who are spiritually sound, good people? Why would they want them to be in a position where it will harm them? So, going back to the whole toxin thing, it's like, well, we got to go back to like the story of Western medicine, the story of big pharma, the story of big oil, just a simple thing like that. I think this is, well accepted now, is that, the Rockefellers, right? John D. Rockefeller, who was he? He was the greatest of all time for monopolizing the petroleum industry, right? He just figured out how to monopolize that industry, and then was like, well, I got to get everybody like to take medication because medications have petroleum products in there. They have to use oil. And so now he funds the American Medical Association. He funds these schools, the medical schools, And then it's like, well, what are they teaching people in medical schools? Well, it's all about the drugs. It's all about prescribing drugs and pharmaceuticals that also utilize petroleum products, right? So again, that's like a whole monopoly. More money, more power, keep everything, it's great for business. Why would they want you to be, healthier? Because if you're healthier, you will not use, you will not engage, you will not be a customer of big pharma. You will not be a customer in hospitals. You will not be a customer to the allopathic medicine, right? And I'm not shitting on allopathic medicine, and I don't think that all doctors are evil. I just think that that whole thing has been hijacked. Allopathic medicine saved my dad. If you guys have delved into the story of my dad, he had to have a liver transplant. He had sepsis, and thank God there was a hospital. Thank God we didn't bring him to like an acupuncturist, or like the Reiki lady, because he had multiple organ failure and had a systemic infection, and he did need antibiotics. He did need to be on a ventilator. He needed to go through all of that. By the grace of God and how that works, he was saved, and he turned around and he got a liver transplant. And, thank God for allopathic medicine and their technologies in surgery and replacing organs and stuff like that. I'm very grateful for all of that. But at the same time, realizing that that is the strength of Western medicine is emergency medicine, is surgery and medications and affecting physiology in that short-term way like that. But when it comes to public health, longevity, us thriving as human beings, that's not really part of the agenda. It's not part of the business plan. Because if everybody is self-sufficient, if they teach you how to really be healthy, then there are no customers, right? Because it doesn't make a whole lot. It doesn't make billions and trillions of dollars. Like the average holistic health person is not making that much money, and they're not making like multi-gazillions of dollars unless you're somebody maybe who owns a company and you have like a big brand and you have like a big clinic. Yeah, I get that. But the average like practitioner, go to a local homeopath, go to your local acupuncturist, massage therapist, right? Go to your local chiropractor, right? These are all like small businesses. And so, it doesn't fit into the big establishment. And realize that your health is being traded on the stock market. Your, debt is being traded, health is being traded. And so there's a lot of money involved, conflicts of interest. And so again, if everybody is healthy, if there are no toxins that making us sick, then how can healthcare, all these big pharma, biotech and big pharma and pharmaceutical companies and and insurance companies that are publicly traded on the stock market, right? How do they make money? How are they going to come out every quarter and say, look at our profits? We have we beat our earnings this year and this quarter, right? We're doing so well. We're projected to make, X amount of billions of dollars, right? How can they do that? And then also, how can they convince you to take a shot every year if you don't get sick? And then they scare you, right? And doctors scare you because they've been taught to scare you. They've been taught to only go like, this is the only solution. So if the doctors go, well, you only have this solution, and if you're not willing to listen to this, then all I can tell you is that you're going to go down this dark path. And so they scare you into, taking the shot, into taking their medication, into taking out your gallbladder and stuff like that, without ever talking about all the stuff that they're spraying in the skies, the things that are off-gassing in your furniture that has flame retardant in it, and all this stuff. Right. And so I think at the end of the day, that's what it really comes down to, is to simplify it. Right. And again, why it all is this way, I don't know. I think that at the end of the day, that's just evil. Right. There's a really good book. It's I think it's called Outwitting the Devil, I think. Yeah, by Napoleon Hill. And essentially it's an interview with the devil, right? It's like what would like and then the interview is like asking the devil like, hey, what would how do you lie to people? How do you keep them suppressed? How do you keep them afraid? And what are the tactics, right? And it talks about all these tactics. And then I go, yeah, if I was in like if I had to draw up, this whole game plan, I would do those things too. It makes sense, but it just doesn't make sense to the people that are, I guess, that are asleep, not awake to it, that are plugged into the matrix, right? So, us, we are aware and we are awake, and we understand that what's really happening. So, anyways, that's why they're not talking about it, right? Which is my criticism to a lot of the like Maha people and the health influencers is, they only want to talk about food. And I'm like, listen, like I eat pretty good. I don't eat good 100% of the time. I eat pretty healthy. A lot of my patients are very, very strict with their diet. Like I know people that are insanely regimented, insanely disciplined. And they're like, I do all the things, yet they still have problems. I still have problems. Like we all have problems. Why? Because we're bombarded with electromagnetic radiation, artificial blue light, and heavy metals and aluminum, and you just can't get away from that. So yeah, the conversation needs to shift towards that beyond just food. I think we beat this food thing. I think we get it by now. I think most people understand that. Yes, like I shouldn't be eating the sugar and the processed foods and shopping organic and yada yada yada. But I think that's let's just say that's only half the battle, right? There's another whole half, which is the air that we're breathing, right? The things that we're constantly exposed to. Does that make sense? Am I making sense here? All right. What helps you get pregnant at age 40 plus? My mom had me in her 40s. So I think I turned out all right, or otherwise maybe I'm delusional. And but it's possible. It's definitely possible. And menopause should happen at 50. And I I have a handful of people under my care who go through menopause around age 50, and maybe even a little bit, further, a little older than that. And they're usually really healthy and really resilient, robust systems and whatnot. But females who are going through like menopause and perimenopause in their 40s, and sometimes you even hear about it in their late 30s, I think that is a huge problem. If that's not a crisis in and of itself, I don't know what is. But you're supposed to be able to still be fertile at that age. And is it higher risk? Yeah, potentially. How much of that is just what they tell you, versus because I know plenty of people that have had kids in their 40s with no issues, perfectly healthy. At the end of the day, it's how robust your system is, right? Do you have adequate nutrients and a reserve in your organs that can support you, procreating? That's at the end of the day. If you're a really deficient person, if you don't have enough nutrients, if you don't have a lot of energy, right? You don't have good chi, if your organs are suffering, then yeah, your body's gonna go into this like perimenopause, menopause years earlier, and you're gonna have run into fertility issues. So what is helpful for getting pregnant and the whole fertility thing? Well, number one is I think people really got to pay attention to their adrenal glands and their thyroid. Those two organs are so important, even beyond, I would say, your ovaries. But ovaries, adrenals, and thyroid have a triangular relationship working with each other. And at the center of it, and truly at the center, thyroid's here, ovaries down at the bottom. And in the middle, you have your adrenal glands. So at the center, at the core of this trifecta is your adrenal glands. And what's our lifestyle these days? Is it adrenal friendly? No, it's not. We're constantly under stress. That could be some sort of mental emotional stress. That could be toxicity stress, could be infection stress, you know, and then also electromagnetic radiation, all that stuff. So you have stress, and we live in a stressed out society. Maybe that's by design, like you have the Federal Reserve, right? Our banking system, our central banking system. Let's go at this from like different avenues. Let's kind of go away from this like, I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna give you a supplement type of thing. Let's think about this deeper, because I think this really deserves a lot of attention here, especially when I'm talking about the adrenal glands. Okay, you have the central banking system. Who created that? The elites of the world, right? They created the central banking system. What does the central banking system love? They love debt. They love printing money. They love inflation. So we have this fiat currency. Okay, that causes the people to get poor. The people who have assets, who understand the game, buying real estate, buying precious metals, buying commodities and rights to things and land and assets. When you buy those things, inflation is your friend, right? So the powers that be have a lot of assets. They love this inflationary system that we have. The average person, the average Joe, not just an American, but just the rest of the world, may not have assets. You may not own any assets. You may have very little assets. So when you don't have assets and you're working for money, fiat currency, whether it's the dollar or the yen or what have you, your money is getting poorer and poorer and getting less and less. How do you think it feels going to the grocery store with $100 back in the day, and you can do a lot of damage at Costco? Nowadays, $100, you're buying like 5 things. And then maybe later on, your $100 might only be worth 1 thing. How stressful is that human being going to be when they look at their bank account, when they look at how things cost, when they go to the store, right? This is their survival. So even though you may not feel like absolutely stressed out of your mind, but every time you look at the price tag, every time you check out, every time you have to deal with something about money, your subconscious, a little bit in there, right, is like worried, right? It's thinking about cost. Is thinking about, am I going to be able to pay my bills, right? It's just like that little bit in the back of your head. What do you think that's doing to your adrenal glands? It's constantly kicking it and going like, we need to make a little bit more adrenaline, a little bit more cortisol, because this person senses some sort of danger. And again, in the nervous system doesn't discriminate between whether you're looking at some arbitrary number of your bank account or whether you're looking at like a tiger or a lion or some sort of thing or a grizzly bear coming at you. It doesn't know the difference. It just goes, danger, right? Looking at this Cocoa Aminos, it costs like $15.99, and going like, wow, and then your body's like, are we experiencing like a grizzly bear attack, right? You go to the store, you go to the cashier, and you're paying your $200 bill, right, grocery bill, and your body goes through the same event. So every time you have to pay your mortgage, you go through the same event. So these things create this underlying sympathetic dominance, this fight or flight state. And that stresses the adrenals out. And for females, your adrenals don't mature until you hit menopause. Our adrenals, your adrenal glands are supposed to make the hormones, your sex hormones, after menopause. So your ovaries make estrogen, progesterone, right? All that good stuff, all that female hormone, all your hormones that you need to be fertile, to be healthy. You're making that until menopause. At menopause, it passes the baton off to your adrenal glands, and your adrenal glands need to produce those hormones now. Well, the problem is that when you come out at 18 or in your 20s and you're going into the real world, you are now in a fight or flight situation every single day, right? We haven't even talked about the influence of artificial blue light and creating a cortisol release from your adrenal glands. We haven't even talked about that. But again, just that simple thing is creating sympathetic dominance. And so you're wearing out your adrenal glands, and the adrenal glands like, I'm tired, I'm fatigued, I'm stressed, I'm losing my vitamin C, I'm using all the peptides and proteins in the adrenal glands, and then the ovaries and then the thyroid has to compensate for that. And usually that's the reason why we have a lot of people having hypothyroid issues. Many decades ago, I think it's about like 6 decades ago, 60 years ago, the amount of thyroid issues, it was rare, super rare for hypothyroid to be a thing. Now, I would argue that it is the most common dysfunction that men and women go through. And people look at the thyroid suffering, and it's really because of an adrenal gland problem, because we live in this adrenal, we don't live in an adrenal friendly, environment. Our environment is dictating all of this. So that's just one avenue as to why this system breaks down, why we have hormonal issues, right? And let's talk about like bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. Why so many females and men are on bioidentical hormones or replacement hormones or TRT or estrogen patches. And then now it's like all these holistic people or even like naturopaths and MDs, functional MDs and whatnot will be like, oh, as you age, you have less of your hormones, which is, by the way, God designed it that way, right? That your hormones do lower as you age. And then it's like, but the problem right now is that deceleration, that decline is much greater, right? And faster because these are steroid hormones. And instead of making estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, your body is making cortisol, which is also another steroid hormone, and making adrenaline, epinephrine, norepinephrine, which is also made from these steroids. So your body doesn't have enough raw material and it's burning up the reserves in order for it to constantly fight off this grizzly bear, right? Which is the central banking system, which is another grizzly bear is going to be like electromagnetic radiation. Another grizzly bear is going to be infections and processed foods, right? And all this political stuff, like all this fear that you're fed every time you turn on the news, right? Is it anything positive? It's like 1 part positive, 9 parts negative, right? And there seems to be always like some sort of chaos and unrest in the world. Like, is that by design? Because if we are so stressed out all the time and stuck in fear, right? It's like now that makes us sicker. Now that makes us more of a customer for Western medicine, big pharma, and then more of a customer to debt. We have to borrow money and do all this stuff, right? You see how all these things run in parallel, right? So anyways, yeah, I wish I could say like, hey, fertility, take this herb, take this nutrient, take this thing, shine some red light on your ovaries. I wish I could I wish it was that simple, but it's not. And so then some of you go like, well, what's the fix? And I don't know exactly how to fix all of that, right? How to fix the world problems, but being aware of it is very important, right? So when you understand the game, then you go, okay, well, all right, to play that game. Well, maybe I have to learn about finances. I have to learn about how to accumulate assets. I have to learn to play the game better. Because this is just all like a game that we have to play. You're forced to play this game. Unless you're telling me that you're living off grid in the middle of nowhere, you live off the land, and that's freaking awesome. if you're living off the land and you're growing your own food and you're self-sustaining and you don't have to use like money and all this stuff, like that's amazing. But that's just not how majority of the world is, right? So again, the more that we can become aware, the more that we can have these conversations, and then we can essentially, you're like, I feel like I'm like a little candle and I'm just like lighting your wick on your candle. And hopefully you get lit up by that and then you can go and like light up other candles. And then collectively as human beings, we can finally go, maybe Andy Frisella is right. Maybe some people are talking about, well, what if nobody pays taxes? I think the government will probably listen to us if if nobody pays taxes, right? I mean, I don't know if they're just going to print their way out of that. Who knows? But this is how you decentralize yourself from from the world. This is how you begin to learn a little bit more and become more aware, so that number one, you don't have to be afraid of, oh, there's something wrong with me. You just go like, I'm not afraid, even though like I learn and I like to dive down these rabbit holes. It's not shocking. It's not fearful. I like learning about it. And in fact, it's like it allows me to become more equipped on how I want to play the game, of how I want. And it gives me a lot of peace because it no longer do you feel like, the problem's just on me and what am I doing wrong? Right? You then begin to understand a little bit like deeper and more broad so that you can take the action for yourself, and then once you understand that, then you can make those choices better, right? um hey, but anyways, I am gonna plug in a supplement for you fertility folks. If you're a female and you have trouble with fertility or hormones and things like that, go to my website, go to the store, and get the ovary bioregulators. Okay. That one has been super game changing for a lot of people. It doesn't help everybody. I have had females that say it has done nothing for them. I am very honest with you. But majority of the people that I have recommended that to, it has helped their libido. It has helped their cycles get regular. It has given them their menstrual cycle back, their period back, which is a huge thing. You're supposed to have regular menstrual cycles. It's helped them with their fertility. It's helped them with not feeling like they have no hormones, which is a very low energy fatigue state. So I've had a patient of mine who was like, my husband has been complaining about for years now how she has low libido and everything. And after she got on it, her libido came back, and now her husband's dealing with stuff. And so she's like, what the hell? So, anyways, try that out. It's a simple thing. It's not, if it helps, it helps. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And if you should be able to feel a difference just being on it for a few months. Make sense? Cool. This is helpful. You guys like tangents, rabbit holes? Uh let's go through one more question, shall we? What keeps you in California versus moving away prior to your new business spot? And congrats. Thank you. My clinic is taking a little longer than expected. They keep extending the ETA because and I've dealt with that when I had to do like construction work at my home, and it's always like, okay, we can get this done in 4 weeks, and then like 6 weeks later, they're like, we got like 2 more weeks left, and oh, we're having delays here, and it's always something. So I don't know, folks. If you're in construction, you got to get your shit together because we don't like it. But anyways, why California? This is where I was born and raised, California, and I was born and raised in San Francisco. So, the idea of living in California is awesome. when it comes to weather and culture, trends and stuff like that. There's such a palpable energy here, good and bad. So, would I want to live in other places? Yeah, like I would consider it, but like I love Japan, if you tell me like if you put a gun to my head and say you got to live in Japan, I'd be like, "Hey, say less. Let's go now." But how realistic is that for me? Like I don't know. Like do I really want to be there? Do I really want to like learn a whole new language? I don't know. Is it and maybe going to like Florida. I don't know. I mean, it's so humid when it's humid. So that's another thing. And it's so far from family. Idaho is great. I like Idaho, but it does get cold. Boise is super crowded these days. It's a lot of farmland everywhere. There's not a whole lot of Asian food. That's another thing is like, where are you going to find like good Asian food? Um, and, me and my wife, like, that's important, good sushi and good Asian food. Where are you going to find that in like the middle of Idaho or, some of these places or like Florida and whatnot? It's just, although Florida has really good Italian food, I would say that. And there was a Thai spot that's really good. But anyways, like, yeah, like Orange County is like amazing. So I found a little bubble in Orange County where I think it's amazing. And I think that everybody should consider like Orange County because it helps raise my home prices. And that's good too. So again, understanding how the game works. But yeah, I think California is worth fighting for, right? It's very and I don't blame anybody who leaves and whatnot. You're just looking out for yourself. I get it. And yeah, we pay a lot of tax, we pay a lot of fees and regulations and whatnot. There's all these things that you have to hoops you gotta jump through but at the end of the day, it's sort of like, you want to fight the good fight, and I want to live here because I like the environment. I like the weather. My people are here. My family's here. The food that I love is here. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm missing certain things, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. And maybe later on, like I'll gain some clarity, after my 5-year lease of this place, and maybe like we'll consider something else. But at the same time, there's plenty of people. Like I feel like California needs us, right? Like we need people in California who can courageously speak the truth and is not afraid of telling you stuff that is real. Like when I go back to the Bay Area, I feel like I have to walk on eggshells with like the people there because they're bought into a certain agenda, a certain way. Like during COVID, it was like I was like I can't go back to this place. Like I need to be in my little bubble in OC, because we get it, right? And again, at first it's kind of like a red versus blue, left versus right type of thing, but nowadays it's more about a good and evil thing. So you just like as somebody who, if you are a person of faith, like you need to have faith in that process, and you need to continue to be the light. And if we all kind of just run away, I don't think that's healthy either. And I don't know if you've heard, but a lot of people are moving back to California because, they didn't like it in Texas. They don't like it in Florida. They don't like it in like Tennessee, or anywhere else. And that's fine. Some people love it and some people don't. But I don't know. California, it's just a vibe here. We gotta stick up for it. We gotta fight for it. Healthy way to fuel the body while working out, um, dealing with low blood sugar dips and headaches. You want to consider, this is just me, something that actually helps me out is before I work out, if I have blueberries, it's so good. I will just take a handful of blueberries and I'd eat that before I work out. Um, I also realized that doing a bunch of salt in your water or increasing your electrolytes, I find that I like salt better. My body responds well to my structured water and some real good salt. That seems to work better for me. Some people like their electrolyte powder, they like their LMNT, they like that, all that stuff. That's fine. You can do that too. But increase your electrolytes, have some blueberries or have some fruit before you work out. Have a little something. Make sure you're eating adequate amounts of protein, stuff like that. Make sure you're getting good sleep. That's a really good way to help with your workouts. Because I know what you're talking about when that blood sugar dips. And I'll often I like to do a thing where I fast during my workouts, or I just go through extended periods of time of not eating, and then I do a workout. And a lot of times, if I don't have electrolytes, or if my blood sugars are already a little wonky, during and after the workout, I feel like I'm gonna throw up or faint or something. So what I find that's been really helpful is just a little bit of fruit, right? You can do a little bit of honey, just something to get the blood sugar going. And fruit is really good. I think berries are great. And then some electrolytes will really help and support you there. There was a question that I just saw. All right, founding member. Unless I emailed you or messaged you specifically, yeah, we are currently sold out of that. But if I message you specifically, that means that I have reserved one for you. So do not share that link with everybody. But yeah, as of current now, we are currently sold out unless you see so otherwise. Thank you for the founding members. Thank you for um, entrusting me with your health and paying for your sessions up front. It's really helpful for me. And also, it like with so many of you guys actually signing up, it's very encouraging and very motivating for me to kind of keep fighting for you guys. And well, that's just the right thing to do. But, and yeah, just keep trying to do the best that I can, learn more, refine my skills more, continue to tell you the truth about stuff and whatnot. So, anyways, all right. I always like these because biohacking is kind of a cool thing. Sauna versus PEMF mat for nervous system regulation, and you must pick one. What do you guys think? Help this person out. What do you folks think? Those who are in this live right now. Would you choose a sauna or would you choose PEMF mat for nervous system regulation? It's a good question. I think that if it was up to me, I would choose a sauna. That's a personal preference. That's not a scientific, efficacy. It's not a what's more effective or whatnot. It's purely from a place of what I feel like is best for relaxation and whatnot. I have a PEMF mat at home. How much do I use that? Sometimes, here and there, few times a year, maybe. If we're sick or something like that, we're definitely using that. If there's some sort of thing that we're trying to clear, then we're definitely using the PEMF mat. But how motivated am I to use PEMF every day? I'm not. But sauna, big fan of. And I think that there's more compliance with the sauna. I think people feel better from a sauna. I think people feel more relaxed after a session of sauna. I think that even, if we do use science and data, there's more data there. And I think that, anecdotally, people just prefer it a little bit more. So anyways, long story short, I would choose a sauna. I have a cold plunge at home and I haven't used it in a long time, and I wish I got a sauna instead, truth be told. But yeah, I would use a sauna. I think that there's plenty of benefits to a sauna because if you have kids and they're sick, put them in there. You don't have to do the highest heat, by the way. You can adjust the temperature on the sauna and put them in there because that's helping mimic a fever, which is helpful for detoxification, helpful for fighting off the infection. Like, do that, right? And if you're somebody who, and you're talking about nervous system regulation, it's very helpful for sleep. When people do a sauna, their nervous system relaxes. You go through a mild grade cardio, you go through zone 2 cardio, and you're essentially mimicking exercise. So you have that. But again, that doesn't take away from all the benefits of grounding and PEMF and stuff like that. But, but you can also ground. Like, you can also just, go to the beach, go to the park, go out in nature, go hike, go soak in a hot spring. And you'll be doing essentially what PEMF is doing. But, having a sauna, I think is great. So, all right, last one. Best supplements for currently pregnant and also breastfeeding. That's easy. Vervita, Regenerozyme Heart is my number one go-to when it comes to a prenatal, postnatal, and all the above. And also, Supreme Nutrition also carries the product Good, G-U-D. And that one's good. It's called Good for Mamas. You guys can look into that. Some other ones that you might want to consider is reishi mushroom. Okay, reishi is very good for your immune system. It's also helpful on mitigating some electromagnetic radiation toxicity. It's good for your kidneys. You can also look into doing like essential fatty acids like black cumin oil. Sure, I will type that in. Regenerozyme Heart. Okay. Good for mamas. 2 prenatals. And then I'm just going to ramble off some other ones. Yeah, black cumin oil is good. You can also, I also like to do iodine. I think iodine's very helpful for fertility, but also keeping the fetus healthy. Also very good at with against radiation, but iodine is very important when it comes to the nervous system development for your baby. So if you're iodine deficient, then you know you might be the baby's more prone to like lower IQs or neural developmental disorders and developmental delays and whatnot. So for the brain and nervous system, gotta have iodine. Gotta have iodine. You can do some like organ pills if you want, like some liver and spleen and kidney, stuff like that you can do. That's nature's multivitamin. I think doing some extra like fatty acids like DHA and EPA is good. DHA is well needed for your brain and your nervous system as well. Nerve tissue, especially brain tissue, requires DHA. Helps us feed the semiconductors, right? Our cells here on our brain, they're like semiconductors and kind of like a microchip. And DHA is a critical nutrient for that. So that's fatty fish, right? Your salmon, although salmon's kind of like, a lot of salmon out there is not that good, but there's a company called Seatopia, and they make not make, but they do farmed, but their farming is in the middle of an ocean where it's a huge area. It's not in a barrel where there's like 10,000 fish eating each other's poop. So very responsibly like farmed, like it's essentially, think of regenerative farming, but for fish. cleanest one yet because, a lot of wild caught fish is subject to mercury and things like that. Although, like, how concerned are we? Should we be about, all that stuff, or is it just um more of a more of a false thing. I don't know. But you can look into Seatopia. You can do a lot of, more wild caught fish and stuff like that. I think people should be eating more fish, more wild caught fresh fish. If fish from a grocery store, it's, previously frozen, kind of gross. If you have access to, if you have access to like a fish market, where they can get fish, fresh, that's another perk of living in California, like the ocean's right there. But depending on where you are, it doesn't matter even if you live in the middle of nowhere, you can still get like Seatopia, sent out to you. And, I order from them, as well. I get a lot of their fish, like salmon, uh, yellowtail. They even have like scallops and stuff like that, uh, and different types. Oh, sea bass. Yeah, they have sea bass, which is like so tasty. So lots of fish. Why am I holding back on saying use fish oil? Is because the average fish oil that you are consuming, especially if you're getting it from Costco or some shitty place like that, it is going to be an average of 18 months, 1 year and a half from fish capture, from when they catch the fish to capsule. So from catch to capsule, it is 18 months. Do you want to eat fish when it's been dead for 18 months? Yeah, that's up to you. So that's why I'm hesitant on the fish oil thing, but that there are some good brands, but I would encourage you to eat more fish. So anyways, I got to run. It's Friday night. Hope you guys have a great Friday night and enjoy your weekend. We're going to be doing a lot more of these lives because it allows us to dive deep into some of these topics and questions. I hope you're enjoying them. I do them sporadically. Maybe I will announce them next time but it's always on replay. So there's no excuses there. And hopefully you guys are learning a thing or two and understanding a little bit more about like holistic health and how it really works, and learning about some of the nuances, and that it's not as simple as just like, here's a condition, here's a symptom, here's a supplement, here's a drug, here's a product for it, right? There's multiple factors at play. So these lives give me an opportunity to just kind of like explore down that rabbit hole and ramble and expand these concepts more, because I think it's very important. I think in this day and age of social media and like, AI and all that stuff, that all that information is out there. You can easily find, any type of information, any answer that you need. You don't really need me, but I think my role and my strength and the value that I bring is that I'm able to connect the dots for you and able to explain a lot of these concepts at a deeper level. That's been very valuable to me in my journey and my learning. So I'm just trying to help share that and explain that more for you. So, if you don't like how, I go off and explain things in depth and you just want like simple answers and things like that, don't worry about it. I don't care. But I do hope that, you begin to become a person who thinks deeper, who thinks, who just thinks more globally, more holistically, and and understand how, um, all these factors in our life and our lifestyle and our environment and how it all affects us. So, anyways, have a great weekend. Love you all. Take care. We'll do more. Message me on Instagram. I have more downtime these days, so I do answer, your stuff on Instagram nowadays because I'm caught up with messages. And yeah, have a good one.